They say the wealthy live in a world of their own, a world where power is a currency, where the difference between admiration and humiliation can be decided with a single glance. In this world, some people shine under the grand chandeliers, while others are merely shadows expected to serve and disappear. But what happens when one of those shadows steps into the light? What happens when someone who was meant to be ignored forces the entire room to stop, to watch, to listen? David Carter had spent years perfecting the art of invisibility. He wasn't meant to be heard. He wasn't meant to be seen. But on this night would be different. Because someone was watching him. Not with admiration, not with kindness, but with something far colder. She had power. She had influence. And that night, she had one goal: amusement. At any cost. What happens next will leave you speechless, because in the world of the elite, they never expect greatness from those who serve them, until it's too late. This is what really happened that night. The Regency Club wasn't just a restaurant. It was a fortress of privilege, a place where the city's elite gathered, not just to dine, but to remind the world of their position. Tonight, the air shimmered with the quiet arrogance of the powerful, the unspoken understanding that this was their world. And in this world, there were only two types of people, those who belonged and those who served. David Carter had spent years blending into the background, his movements careful, his presence unobtrusive. He knew exactly how to exist within these walls, efficient, silent, invisible. To the guests, he was no different from the glasses they drank from, an extension of the service that catered to their every whim. But what no one knew, what no one ever cared to ask, was that David carried something within him. A voice, a gift, a talent passed down from his mother, a woman whose melodies could turn the ordinary into something extraordinary. She had always believed in him, and now she was gone. So the music stayed locked away, buried beneath the weight of lost dreams and whispered memories. Vivian Langford, heiress, socialite, a woman whose name carried weight in circles where influence meant everything. To those beneath her, she was untouchable. To those within her world, she was a force, a woman who thrived on control, on the power to manipulate a room with nothing more than a well-placed word or an elegantly raised brow. Vivian had grown bored, and when she was bored, someone always paid the price, and tonight she had found her next amusement. For the elite, control is everything. A well-timed comment, a calculated smirk, it's all part of the game. And tonight Vivian Langford had just found a new pawn to play with. You carry drinks with such grace, but tell me, do you have any real talent? I sing, ma'am. A singer? How delightful. She gestures toward the grand piano at the far end of the room. The band had just finished their set, their instruments resting in silence. The stage was empty. Waiting. Why don't you prove it? The entire room goes still. Eyes shift. Conversations pause. The attention of the Regency Club is no longer on their expensive meals or the deals being whispered over wine glasses. It's on him, on the man who was supposed to remain unseen. It was an invitation, but not the kind that offered opportunity. This was a stage built for failure, a moment designed to humiliate, to remind David exactly where he stood in their world. A slow camera pan across the room. Some guests smirk, eager for the entertainment. Others watch with quiet skepticism. No one expects much, just a fleeting amusement before they return to their lavish conversations. David's breathing steadies. His mother's voice echoes in his mind, gentle, unwavering. Never let anyone silence your gift. He exhales. The choice is his. Walk away and let the moment pass, or step forward and prove that he is more than just a bartender in their eyes. Then, without a word, David turns, walks. Each step toward the piano feels heavier than the last, but he does not stop. The hush in the room grows thicker. No one is laughing now. No one is speaking. They are waiting, waiting to see if the man who serves their drinks will crumble or rise. The hush in the room is deafening. The weight of expectation, of silent amusement, presses down like an invisible force. David stands in front of the grand piano, his fingers hovering over the keys, his pulse hammering in his ears. He can feel the stares digging into his back, the skepticism thick in the air. At that moment, David wasn't just a bartender anymore. He was something more, but the room didn't know that yet. They expected hesitation. They expected failure. What they didn't expect was what came next. The first notes are soft, hesitant, a delicate ripple in the silence. A few guests exchange glances, unimpressed, their interest waning before it has even begun. David's voice rises. At first, it's barely above a whisper, but there's something in it, a rawness, an aching depth that lingers in the space between notes. And as the melody unfolds, it begins to take shape, swelling, breathing. It is sorrow and hope intertwined, a sound so hauntingly beautiful it feels almost tangible. The room stills. Conversations once murmured in quiet amusement dissolve into nothing. The rustling of fine linen napkins, the clinking of silverware, everything stops. The elite, the untouchable, the ones who never spare a second thought for those who serve them, are captivated. They came for entertainment. They stayed because they had no choice. The camera pans across the faces in the crowd. A woman in pearls, her fingers gripping the stem of her wineglass as if she's forgotten she's holding it. A businessman, his jaw tightening, eyes locked on David as if he's seeing something he can't quite explain. Another guest, the corner of his mouth twitching as if he wants to look away, but can't. And then there's Vivian Langford. Her smirk is gone. The amusement, the certainty, the quiet condescension, it has vanished. What's left in its place is something unfamiliar, something she does not recognize. Or she had expected a joke, a spectacle, a performance to mock. But she had made one mistake. She had underestimated him. David's voice soars. The song is no longer just music. It is a story of struggle, of perseverance, of something greater than words could ever hold. It is the echoes of a mother's belief, of a dream buried beneath years of silence. And now, finally, it is free, not scattered, not polite, but thunderous, genuine, a standing ovation, the force of it rolling through the Regency Club like a wave. David stands, his chest rising and falling, his hands trembling at his sides as he bows. He does not need to look up to know what has just happened. He was seen, truly seen, and nothing would ever be the same again. The room remains frozen for a second, as if the last note is still echoing, lingering in the air. Then, without warning, applause erupts. It starts hesitantly, a slow, uncertain build, and then it spreads like wildfire. Chairs scrape against the floor as guests rise to their feet, clapping, some even cheering. The wealthy elite, people who had dismissed him only moments ago, are now giving him a standing ovation. David stands at the piano, breathless, his hands still hovering over the keys. His pulse pounds in his ears, but it is not from nerves anymore. It is something else. Something he hasn't felt in a long, long time. Recognition, respect. For years, David had mastered the art of invisibility. Tonight, he was undeniable. Vivian Langford had spent her life controlling the narrative, turning moments into spectacles for her own amusement. But tonight, she had lost control. Her mouth parts slightly, as if to say something, but no words come. Instead, she simply watches as David rises from the piano bench, turning to face the crowd. He bows, graceful, composed, but there's something in his eyes now. A quiet defiance, a certainty that had been buried beneath years of doubt, now finally set free. David steps away from the piano, and as he moves through the crowd, something remarkable happens. Guests part for him the way they would for someone important, someone powerful. His co-workers, servers, chefs, staff who had worked alongside him in the shadows, exchange glances, their faces filled with a mix of pride and astonishment. One of them, a fellow bartender, claps him on the back with a grin. "Where the hell have you been hiding that?" David simply smiles. He doesn't need to answer. He knows exactly where he's been, and he knows that after tonight, he won't be there anymore. The calls start the very next day, patrons contacting the Regency Club, not to make dinner reservations, but to ask one question: when will the bartender sing again? Word spreads quickly, first among the regulars, then beyond. A music producer leaves his number with the manager, requesting a meeting. An event organizer inquires about booking David for a private gala. A moment that was meant to humiliate him had changed everything. He had walked into that room as a bartender. He was leaving as something else. Cut back to Vivian, days later. Sitting at her table again, but this time there is something different about her. She watches David from across the room, not with amusement, not with condescension, but with something far closer to respect. I never saw it coming. She lifts her wine glass, and instead of mockery this time, she raises it in a silent acknowledgement. The next morning, the Regency Club hums with an energy it has never felt before. Phones ring endlessly, the receptionist barely keeping up with the influx of calls. The usual requests for dinner reservations have been replaced by a different kind of demand, one the restaurant has never received before. Receptionist overwhelmed, answering the phone. "Yes, ma'am, I understand. No, I don't know when he'll be singing again. Yes, I'll let the manager know." Another phone rings, then another. Word had spread. The elite, the untouchable, the ones who never looked twice at the man pouring their drinks. Now they wanted more. They wanted the music. They wanted the magic they had witnessed the night before. The bartender they had overlooked had become the star they couldn't ignore. "You've got people calling in just to hear you sing, man. What the hell did you do to them last night?" David exhales, a slow, disbelieving smile forming on his lips. He doesn't know what to say. He doesn't even know how to process it. But before he can respond, the restaurant's manager approaches him, an unreadable expression on his face. "There's someone here to see you." David frowns, wiping his hands on his towel before following the manager through the dining area. And then he stops, because sitting at a table near the window watching him is the last person he expected to see. She is alone. No entourage, no lingering air of superiority. Just her, and for the first time, there is something unfamiliar in her gaze, something softer, something uncertain. David steels himself, walking toward her table. He doesn't speak first. He waits. Vivian shifts slightly, as if choosing her words carefully. And then she exhales, setting her wine glass down gently. "I underestimated you. Your talent. It's something else." There is no arrogance in her tone now, no mockery, just honesty. And that, more than anything, feels like the real victory. Vivian Langford was not the kind of woman who admitted she was wrong, but last night had changed things, not just for David, but for her. David nods once, accepting the words, not as validation, but as acknowledgement. He doesn't need her approval, not anymore. He has already proven himself, not to her, not to the guests, but to himself. As he turns to leave, Vivian speaks again. "You'll be singing again, won't you?" David pauses, looks over his shoulder, and for the first time, he does something she never expected. He smirks. "We'll see. David Carter, I've been looking for you all morning. I saw the video from last night. Whoever recorded that performance did you a favor. It's going viral, man. And listen, I don't usually do this, but we need to talk." David swallows, his heart pounding in his chest. He grips the phone a little tighter, staring at the blank wall in front of him as reality sinks in. This isn't just a compliment. This isn't just a moment. This is an opportunity. He had walked into the Regency Club as a bartender. He had left as something more. And now? Now his future had just begun. There are moments in life that define us, moments that take everything we thought we knew and turn it on its head. David Carter had spent years believing his dream was something meant for another life, another world, one he would never be part of. But in the span of a single night, everything shifted. He had been tested. He had been put on display, meant to be a passing amusement for those who never looked twice at him. But instead, he had made them listen. People like Vivian Langford existed in every corner of society. Those who believe power belongs only to those born into it. That talent is only worth something when it comes from the expected places. But talent doesn't follow rules. It doesn't adhere to status, to privilege, to wealth. It comes from the unseen, the underestimated, the ones who wait in the shadows until their moment arrives. David Carter had always believed he was invisible, but not anymore. Now, they would remember his name. Never underestimate someone based on their status. Talent, passion, and resilience can come from anywhere. What would you have done in David's shoes? Would you have walked away? Or would you have taken that chance? Let us know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, if you believe in the power of the underestimated, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because here, we tell the stories that deserve to be heard.